I've gotta go. I can get it. I can be the star. So close, come on, let's go get it. Yes! I did it! I scored the winning point! MVP! MVP! You know, this series is usually where I try to find the real life equivalent of someplace in the video game world, but maybe I don't want to find real life Spocco Square. I mean, the main thing you do in there is play sports, and I'm better at those in the game. Although the bar is really low. But, I mean, I guess that is kind of the whole point of this video. So, roll the intro. Now, I really do enjoy Switch Sports, but to be fair, it is fairly basic. We have a simple hub area with just 6 sports to pick from. Unfortunately, there is no free roaming, which I can understand. It's a sports simulator, not an open world. But it would still be really fun and would make my job a little bit easier here. But even without that, believe it or not, we do have quite a few things to go off of. And no, it's not the surprisingly in-depth loading screen. Tips? Advertisements? It's all the water surrounding the square. Honestly, if Nintendo isn't careful, they're gonna get another 7.8 on IGN. Well dang, guess they would kinda prefer that. Slide jabs aside, from the main perspective of the hub, there seems to be 3 sections of water. 2 possible lakes, and one that seems like it's a coastline, especially with those waves. But it is hard to tell. In fact, it's hard to tell anything else really, but thankfully this isn't all we have to go off of. Nintendo had released a trailer and it shows off the square from a slightly different angle. From here we can notice 2 additional things of interest. The first is that it does seem to be an ocean. As you can see, it goes all the way to the horizon. And actually this part of water that I thought was a lake is part of it. The second thing we notice is that this area is extremely flat. No mountains, very little hills. It'll be important for later to note this, but for now, let's get back to the ocean. To really hammer this home and figure out why and how these train tracks are going out into the supposedly open ocean, we need to play some soccer.
Yes.
Oh, right, maybe we'll just go into a practice match? If you go to the big field, you can actually look out onto the ocean and see that the train tracks connect to another landmass a bit further out. In fact, this whole area might just be part of some kind of archipelago. But at the very least, we know now that it's part of a coastline with at least 1 island nearby. Part of being on the coast, it also has seagulls, like a ton of them. As in the only bird I've ever seen in the game. And originally, I thought this was going to be a lot more helpful than it actually is. Turns out, seagulls can show up almost everywhere. I guess Yoda was right to be afraid of them. Aside from the coastline, the topography, like we said, is flat. But like, super flat? Like, no hills on the other islands or in the background that I can really see. At least none of a, like, significant height. This is pretty useful to know. Already, we can figure out that we're looking for somewhere near a coast that is fairly flat and has at least 1 island close by. And that does it for the info we can observe, but there's a few other things we can infer, such as its climate. There are 2 aspects of Spocco Square's climate I see it having, just on looking at the hub area. On average, it must have warm to mild temperatures, and for at least the majority of the year, relatively low rainfall, though clearly there is at least a bit of rain. Both of these ideas are due to whoever built Spocco Square deciding it would be a good idea to make it a largely open-air facility. So far, the only tennis and badminton courts we've seen have been outside, and you do not want to play on those in the rain. My leg! Plus, we also have soccer and golf eventually. Going back to our old friend Koppen and his classification system, of the 5 main class types, really only 1 matches it, and that one is Temperate. The others are either too far off on temperature or precipitation. Temperate is a big class, having the 2nd most subtypes, but even that helps us narrow it down a bit. So now let's gather all that we know and see if we can pinpoint this location a bit better. Recounting it all, Spocco Square has a temperate climate on a flat coast and has other islands nearby. Extra points if it has a big city nearby. This leaves the possibilities, as you might imagine, relatively open. For example, one place it could fit fairly well is in California. It ticks a lot of the boxes. It's not as flat as some of the other options, but there are areas that match this description fairly well. Instead, however, I'm gonna give this one to the island of Okinawa in Japan. There's a few reasons why. For example, like a lot of other places, it fits the bill of having a coastline, being flat, and having islands nearby, and being within a temperate climate zone. This one specifically goes into the category of the humid subtropical, or the CFA class. Here are the reasons I'm giving it the edge though. 1. As these bridges that cross over to nearby islands, like in the game. They're not specifically train tracks, but in the game it also just has normal car bridges. 2. It's in Japan, which is home to one of the more niche sports, I'd say, Chanbara, or more commonly known as I looked it up, Chanbara. Finally though, what really won me over in this area was when I was scrolling through on Google Earth and stumbled upon this. 2 sports parks right off the coast. In it, they have soccer, tennis, and as long as I'm looking at the right site here, volleyball and badminton in this dome. 4 out of the 6 sports in one area. Not too shabby. I mean, look at this, it's a huge park for people to come work out, and I know that there's places like this everywhere, but the fact that everything else lines up well too, I just really like it. One more place located on our map. When I started this, I never thought I'd get past the first video, let alone 4 places. That makes me really happy. And if you have any other ideas for places you'd like me to take a look at, let me know in the comments down below. As always though, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.